Hey, here's a heads up to this podcast. It's gone on a bit. I have rattled on a little bit. It starts dark, then it gets a bit lighter, then it gets brilliantly bright, and I give you some wonderful, two so simple processes that just work. They just work, and they help you to banish fear. Hey, that's a big one. But it doesn't have to be big fear. It could be little fear, little anxiety. It works every time. So have a listen. You'll enjoy it, I'm sure. I hope you do anyway. If you're new to this, please have a listen to the next part of the intro, and I'll explain everything about the old personal development unplugged. And if you're not, the old skedaddly-doos, about a minute and a half, and then I'll jump straight into the podcast. Hey, either way, I'll speak to you real soon. Hey, my name's Paul Clough, and I'm part of this thing I've called Unplugged Personal Development. It's a niche of one, the Personal Development Unplugged podcast. You see, in this genre of personal development, self-improvement, of becoming a better you, I believe things have been made way too complicated. And I wondered why. And I don't think it's to make people like you or me feel better, feel good. I think maybe it's for the people who made it more complicated to feel better about themselves. And I don't want any part of that. So that's why I've created this podcast, the Personal Development Unplugged podcast. And it's to break down these complicated ways. And I want to produce and develop powerful, new, yet simple ways. Remember, in simplicity, there's genius. And breaking down these processes, I'll be using hypnosis, NLP, timeline therapy, so many other things. And I'm doing it for one reason only. So you and me can become, if you choose to come on this adventure with me, to become the real you. The real you. Sing from your real voice, to show up, be authentic. All the stuff people talk about, but don't tell you how to do it. I want to break down those personal barriers, your personal barriers. I don't want to fix the things that didn't work, because the thing is, they didn't bloody work. And it's about finding better ways and not using painful ways of the old sorts of ways people used to use, but creating pleasurable ways, passionate ways, to create real opportunities, to let your dreams come true, get learning and developing new skills that make it happen. And the aim of this is not to create the old you, but for you to be fully the real you. So if that feels good, come and join me on this unplugged adventure.
Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
We've talked about fear, and we've talked about fear quite a lot, but I want to talk about it again because it's one of those things that obviously is one of the basis of anxiety, or anxiety is the basis of fear. I don't know which one comes first, but I'm going to discuss again that can it be useful? I'm struggling still with that, because I don't know if you remember, and some of you will, some of you won't, but in one of my darkest times, I really feared what would happen to me. My world was closing in, so I felt. And I really wondered how, would I survive? Now, that didn't happen all the time, but there was one or two thoughts I had that, how am I going to survive this? It was, a real worry. It was a real worry. But at the time, I was worried about so many other things. I wasn't worried about that part. It was if I was in this weird bubble, the weird bubble where I would, it got to the point where I would just break down into tears. And it wasn't for no reason, but it was just in a weird moment. I could be outside in the garden doing something and suddenly convulse into tears. Now, that wasn't right, was it? That wasn't right at all. And you can see I've got a little bit better since then. But the thing is, that fear, did it help me? Well, that didn't help me at all. Did it get me off my bum and start doing things? No, the fear didn't. The fear didn't. And if you really want to know about a little bit more about that, I have got this. It's a sort of book. It's an ebook, and you can go and get it for free on howtocopewithgrief.com. It's not written terribly well because I don't write terribly well. And in fact, it was written from like audio recordings. So I just spoke, and I spoke of the way I felt, and I spoke, it was like recording the work that I did to let go of that grief and change. And you can see through that, it wasn't the fear suddenly going, Paul, prepare, do something about this. Actually, the fear made me curl up in a little ball and not do things. And it was my progressive pushing and help from others that allowed me to get through that. And there's also some hypnosis tracks on there and things like that. Very early hypnosis tracks, but they're pretty good, I think. But anyway, that's free. And if you'd like to go there, please do. But anyway, I wanted to, for me at that particular darkest time, that fear made me want the world to stop. But stop not so I could get off and do something new, just stop. Stop, that's it. So to me, that fear wasn't that productive. We say every behavior has a positive intention. Now, I know partly what that positive intention was. It was to, just stop me doing the things that I was doing. Because some of the things I was doing were, they were being self-destructive thoughts and things like that. But I'll tell you something about that in a minute. Because there was another time in my business career, another life, in my business career, where something happened. And when it happened, it was a huge shock. A huge shock. So much so that I felt everything I'd worked for, any money I'd saved, all my belongings, my house, everything that had come from this working way, this business, was going to disappear, was going to be taken away from me. And that's quite fearful. And again, did that fear help me? No, that fear didn't help. Again, it wanted the world to stop and go back, really, to where it was. I didn't want to be here. Did it get off my bum? No, I didn't. I didn't get off my bum because of that fear. It was a constricting fear. It was seeing the world for its worst. What's the worst that could happen? And then getting more fearful. And we've talked about, seeing the worst that can happen, or all that stuff on the other podcasts. So did the fear protect me? Absolutely not. Did I jump into action? Not straight away. I had other things that caused me to jump into action and do the things. Because, the things about both of those instances, I'm still here. I didn't lose my house. I didn't lose my business. I did things, because I actually knew that I wasn't wrong. But something happened that caused so much doubt in my mind, which caused the fear. Or the fear caused the doubt. I don't know. I know it was trying to say take action, but it was, because you might lose something, but it just didn't work. So what did I do? And this is something that, I certainly hope you're not in that type of position or those types of positions. But anything with fear, and you're not doing anything about it, I think these two, and these are only two, and there's two out of a great number of different processes that will help you, and it certainly helped me. And what was the basis of one of them was just to give me some distance. Give me some distance away from the problem. So I could just look for another way forward. Look for alternatives. Look for ways to mitigate. Look for where I could get the resources to help. Because not only my resources, but resources outside me that I needed. Certainly in that business context, I needed help and advice. And at that time, I couldn't see anything because right in front of me, and in fact both of those times, right in front of me was just the problem. It surrounded everything I thought of, everything I saw outside on the inside, and everything I felt. It was like this big bubble of fear, and I was so in it. And that's part of the key. Because I was in it, I couldn't see a way out of it. And I needed distance. And I'm going to go through that with you in a minute. And I also had to change that fear into a resourceful state. And you think, well, when the fear grips you that much, how can you do that? Well, you can. And I'll show you that too. But why is fear important? And I think fear, to some extent, it is important if we recognize it as being what it is. It's that signal to do something. That's it. Just acknowledge it at that, no more. Because just by not accepting it, because once you accept it, you're in some ways saying, that's okay, and it isn't okay. If you acknowledge it and you just say, yeah, this is happening. I'm acknowledging the feeling. Now I can use it. I can learn from it. Because if it's trying to give me a message, I need to hear the message. I need to see the message. I need to feel the message. I don't need to be in this bubble of fear and not be able to do anything. And it's that acceptance of the fear which really puts you in that bubble. And by acknowledging it, you come out of the bubble. It's as if going into that meta position where you can look down inside. And the other thing, fear is such a disproportionate signal because it freezes you. It makes you want to curl up into that ball. And when you're curled up in that little ball, hoping the world will stop, that's not the most resourceful of states, is it? So, let's just acknowledge it. I've got that. You can also think of, could this be worse? Putting the right perspective on it. And we talked about that on one of the recent FMQs. But anyway, we're going to acknowledge that signal. Acknowledge the signal that we need to do something. Because this fear is now, I've called it a fiction. Fiction of fear. Because it creates fictions in your mind, not facts. Because we blow them out of proportion. And that's no good to any of us. We need to see the world for what it is, and then be able to have the distance to see and feel and hear and act, behave in a way that allows us to do the things we need to do to deal with the issue. Because that's all it is. It's an issue. So what can we do first? Now, I'd like you to write down. Good old Jenny journal. Because all this stuff in your head is the stuff that, when it's in that fictitious fear bit, it's those movies that we make of the worst possible scenario over and over again. It's like a looping video, which really gets on your nerves, doesn't it? You got that voice inside you that keeps telling you that over and over again, what else could go wrong? What else could go wrong? And those feelings. Also, breaking down in tears don't help that much. It's not the most enamoring part of my qualities. But anyway, just write down, what is the problem? Let's get it out on paper. What is this thing that I'm supposed to be scared of? Let's just put it down into simple terms with no emotion. Let's just put down the facts. This is what's happening. You may be able to see just from there what needs to be done. But here's one of the things that I found that really helped. And it's so simple. In fact, it's one of the small, tiny little exercises we do in our NLP trainings, just to show people that you can get distance from a problem. And it reduces the emotion, the negative emotion with it. And I'm going to talk you through this. And then, as usual, what I'll do is I'll do a couple of coaching tracks, or there might be one on two processes on the same coaching track. I don't know. And I'll put it on paulcloughonline.com/podcast. And then you can have access to it whenever you want. So whenever you get any fearful, you get an issue, you can listen to these and get some distance. And then you start acting. So what did I do? Well, I had to get distance. And that's the clue. Get distance from the problem. And to get distance from the problem, you can either move back or, hey, push the pictures away. Push the sounds away. And guess what happens to the feeling when you do that? Here's what you do. You just, having written it down, you just recall the pictures that you're making in your mind. See them. See them with that picture out in front of you. Maybe a movie, maybe a still picture. Just notice whether it's black or white color. Just be curious. Let's just have a little bit of curiosity in that. And then, as you listen to the sounds, begin to push that picture away from you. And as you push it away from you, it'll get smaller because things in the distance get smaller. And as you push it away from you, things in the distance get quieter. And keep pushing it away. And you'll notice the further you push it, the smaller it gets, the quieter it gets, the darker it gets. And if you want to, you can turn up the darkness, just because you can. And if you want to, you can turn down the volume, just because you can. And keep pushing it further and further back. Now, as you push it further back, sometimes it disappears. If it doesn't though, staple it that far away. Just push it that far away and then notice what's happened to the emotion, the fear, the anxiety. That's right. It's diminished. Maybe even gone. But we haven't dealt with the problem yet. But now, in this neutral state, we can decide what would be the best resource for you to be in and be able to then find alternatives, find ways to mitigate the problem, find ways to take appropriate positive action. So in our Jenny journal, keeping that picture way, way in the distance, what would be the state? Maybe it's curiosity, just to be curious of finding new ways. Or maybe in a state of confidence, but just not confidence, maybe a time when you had the confidence to deal with a problem and solved it successfully. Maybe there was another problem that you had in the past that you solved, and you can't put a label to that state, that emotion. But if you go back there now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel those feelings, you'll have it. And as you know, on paulcloughonline.com/podcast, I've actually got a coaching, and I'm not sure if it's hypnosis or just a coaching call, but it's all about accessing your state. There's so many different podcasts I've done about changing your state, stacking your states, anchoring your states. All this is all here for you. But now you've got the distance from the problem, you can do that. And now you can start making a plan. And again, I suggest making the plan in that Jenny journal of the things that you could do. I call it brainstorming, but just let your pen write. What are the things you could do without any judgment? The judgment comes later, because sometimes when you just throw caution to your pen, you'll find wonders will occur. You'll allow your unconscious mind to be free to give you the advice that it's been trying to give you, but it's been masking with this wonderful signal of fear, that fictitious fear. What else could you do? Because that's pretty marvelous, that one. And it's so simple. And what do we say about simplicity? In simplicity, there's genius. So, and the whole point about that pushing that picture away, so far away that everything gets smaller and diminishes. Guess what? It doesn't have to be a monumental fear. Maybe it's just a tiny little bit of anxiety about something, and you want to change your state. Well, let's just push that away first. Push the pictures you're making, the sounds you're making. Notice as you get them smaller and smaller in the distance, the emotion disappears. Then just notice what state would be better. Learn from it. In fact, this is a wonderful place to actually just ask your unconscious mind, what can I learn from this, and what do I need? How can I resolve this? Ask wonderful positive questions. If you ask your unconscious mind, how do you resolve this? In the most wonderful way, the most positive way, that will get me the most wonderful result and I can learn from the future. Hey, it may not come in an instant, but it normally does, but it may take just, maybe minutes, maybe an hour or so, that suddenly you'll get that inspiration. And what do we say when we have those 5 keys to success? You know your outcome because you know what you wanted to resolve and how you want it to be. You get the inspiration, so you take inspired action, massive inspired action. And then as you're doing it, with all those wonderful notes you've made of all the different things you could do, you become aware even more of how you're going towards a solution. And then if you're not quite in that direction, because you're flexible in your approach and your resources, you can be flexible enough to go over that obstacle and have that wonderful psychology and physiology of success. That's really empowerment. The acting as if, having that as if mindset. And maybe even ask the question, what would this be like if it was easy? That's a great question from a guy called Tim Ferriss. What would this be like if it was easy? How could I solve this if it was easy? So there you go. That alone is a wonderful set of processes, all intermingled, which will allow you to get through this issue. any issue. But what else can you do? Because there was another thing I teach my clients, just to show them how quick you can change the way you feel. And when you change how you feel, how things could have been different, and gives your unconscious mind another alternative. You know, it could have done it through the anxiety, or it could have done it through this alternative way. Which one's better? Oh, it's the other way. And your unconscious mind is obviously choose the most wonderful path for you. So what are you talking about, Paul? Well, here's what you do. As you feel that fictitious feeling of fear, just notice. We're just going to acknowledge it again, but acknowledge where it is in your body. And just for example, it was in your pit of your stomach. That's a lot of the time where this anxiety, this fear resides. For a lot of people anyway, in my experience. And just put your attention in it. So sometimes you just need to close your eyes and feel that fear. But you're going to be curious about it. So I want you to be curious and notice that every emotion has to move in like a circular direction. It moves around. Maybe around sideways, forwards, backwards, horizontal, I don't know. But it goes around, it starts, it goes around and comes back to the beginning. And I want you just to notice that. And sometimes you have to sit in there for at least maybe 10, 15 seconds. But you'll notice if you just put your finger in front of where that feeling is in your body, and notice that you could allow your hand to, say, unconsciously move in the direction that that emotion moves. And the thing is, sometimes we get it right first time. But you see, if you think you've got that direction and you start to speed up that feeling yourself consciously, if that feeling gets worse, then you know you've got it. So slow it down. So when you get that feeling and you know that when you speed it up, it gets more intense, worse, if that's a better description, slow it right down. And I want you to notice what colour it is. And don't get all intellectual on me. What colour comes to mind? Just like that. And when you notice a colour and you notice a direction, I want you with your hand to actually keep that hand moving in the same direction, but as if you're pulling that hand and that feeling outside your body. So move that hand away from your body using the same circular direction. And imagine that colour moving in that direction outside your body. And then we go 1, 2, 3, flip it over, turn it round, spin it the other direction. And notice when you spin it the other direction, think of what colour you'd like it to be. That would be the most wonderful colour. That would be the most suitable colour, most appropriate colour that you'd like to have. And as you change it to that colour, with spinning it in the different direction, bring it back inside you with that direction. Still moving your hand, but moving your hand in that other direction. And imagine moving it faster and faster, spinning it faster and faster with this new direction, the opposite direction, and that different colour. And as you spin it faster and faster, notice what happens to the feeling. It begins to diminish. And the more you do it, it disappears. Now that doesn't mean to say that's it, but it gives you space because you're now in a different emotion, you're in a different resource. And here's when you can start asking those questions. What can I learn from this? If this was easy, how can I resolve it? Those type of things. What would be the best resource to use? Who do I know? All those questions from that well-formed outcome. Another thing at paulcloughonline.com podcasts. That well-formed outcome. So you know where you're going, but looking for the resources you need. I didn't realize I had so much here for you. Hey, it's brilliant. And don't worry if you didn't get this. I just want you to get the process in your mind into your imagination. So when you go to, I'll say it one more time and I won't say it anymore after this, paulcloughonline.com/podcast, and you go to the coaching course. It might be hypnosis, it might not, but probably be coaching. You can then just let your imagination go because you've got the gist of it. You'll understand the process. And now you can let yourself go into that process. And they just work. And they just work because they just do. You know, there's no, we're just playing what we call with our submodalities. And when you change the submodalities, things have to change. Because if you make a change, everything changes. And we're changing for the better. We're changing to find that good resource because we've set our intention. Remember that? Oh, that's another one. We're setting our intention. I want to resolve this. Not I want to hide. I want to resolve this and move on. And here's the state, and I've written down everything I need to know, and I've acknowledged this. You're putting all these tools and these pieces of the puzzle together, and the old Cluffy guarantee comes in. You'll start to resolve the problem without even knowing about it, because it will just start to fall together. All the pieces will just fall together, come together, like serendipity, getting lucky. I had a problem and I resolved it, and now there you go. There you go. That's it, really. Simple as that. Simple as that. So I really hope you don't have those biggest problems, because when I got in that darkest time, I did need help, personal one-to-one help. And I was lucky enough to have my youngest son available, who's a brilliant hypnotherapist, and he helped me. But on the other hand, I did a lot of the work myself. And that's in that book, How to Cope with Grief. And in fact, the book's called It Doesn't Have to Be This Way, because it bloody well doesn't have to be this way. That's the whole point. And when you start changing, I was amazed when I just started a few changes seemed to happen more and more and more. It was as if I just suddenly came across another process. I developed one or two processes along the way because they were there to be found. And it was amazing to me. It was a wonderful journey, not one I like to repeat, but it was it was interesting from a different perspective. But I also met a lot of wonderful people along that little adventure that helped me no end. There were times when it just so happened that I met the right teacher, the right person who could just help me. And that's what will happen to you. And that's a little bit like when I'm saying the pieces just fall together. Maybe it's the right person. Maybe it's the right podcast. Maybe it's the right book. Maybe it's just the right thing that happens to come along, because now you're looking for the solution. You've set your intention, and somehow the whole blooming universe seems to conspire with you, for you, because now you're moving. You've learned from it. You've learned your lessons in some way. Sometimes they're just a bit harsh, but now we're moving forward, and we're going to create that world. And again, what we've said before, just a little while ago, when you change, your environment changes. When you evolve, everything around you evolves. And that's what this is. And it's these two simple processes, an good old Jenny journal, will help you do that. Now, I know this has been a little bit serious maybe, but I hope you can use these processes for things that aren't quite that serious and get wonderful results, because processes are just processes. And I do find that I get my biggest results when I'm working one-to-one with clients. They might be a real deep problem for the client, but the simple processes still work, because they still work. And what works, works. They don't stop working. That's the marvelous thing about NLP. It is just a set of processes that keep working and allows you to develop even more processes that keep working. It's marvelous, brilliant. That's why I love teaching it. That's why I love doing it. That's why I love reading about it. Why I love seeing other people do it. It's brilliant. Anyway, let's go do that. I'd love your reaction. Just practice that and let me know. Email me, paul@paulclough.co.uk. Catch me on Twitter @pcluffy. I just love to hear your results. And then if there's anything else we can, you want a suggestion or you suggest something that we can talk about and go a bit more deeply and find one of these wonderful, simple processes that allow you to just make things disappear, let me know, because they're all around. We just need to find the right one. And that's easy. It's easy once we start becoming simple. There you go. I enjoyed that. I wasn't sure where it was going to go. I thought it was a bit dark at the beginning, but I enjoyed that because it's good fun. So enjoy every heartbeat. Have more fun than you can stand. And spin those feelings just the way you want to spin them and get more distance from anything you want. And the other thing is, if there's something really nice that you want, do it differently. Bring it towards you. That's the great thing about this. If there's a memory that you love, bring it closer to you. Make it bigger. Make it brighter. Let the sounds get more and more. Man, enjoy the wonderful things and make them even better, because you can. Because you can. There you go. I'm done. And I will speak to you real soon. If you would, just bear a moment to listen to the little message at the end, because it is important. But thank you so much. Bye-bye now. Hey, here's your usual last minute reminder. Now, time is, well, very rare, and we need to look after our time. And I know your time is called upon by other things and other people to share their works too. So the next time you're thinking about sharing, if you could just think about this podcast and share it with maybe just 2 or 3 of your closest friends or people who just you know that would appreciate it. That would be really good, and it would help grow this little niche that we're carving out for ourselves of personal development, unplugged personal development. If you go to iTunes, that would be great if you have the time to subscribe, maybe leave a nice review. That would be even kinder. And one more thing, the one thing I keep banging on about is all the hypnosis and the NLP processes for all the podcasts are now easily to get at paulcloughonline.com/podcasts. No, not podcasts, podcast, singular. And you go there, they're all there for you, and I'm adding to them at least every month. Okay? Do that. You'll have a great time, and they're all downloadable. So they're in one place, they're downloadable, and you can have more fun than you can stand doing it. There's also loads of stuff on paulcloughonline.com. There's Supreme Inner Confidence. It's a lovely program to grow your self-esteem and really have the confidence that I know you have got, but allow it to come to the fore so you can be truly aligned and get the goals and the dreams that you want. There's also Free Your Life from Anxiety. It's a lovely course, I believe it's a lovely course, to let go of anxiety, because no one needs it in the world at all. You don't need the anxiety, you don't need the stress. Learn how to just let it go. And again, that Supreme Inner Confidence, what more do you need? And on that Free Your Life of Anxiety program, the first 5 days are absolutely free. So you can test it, and even, you never know, you might even let go of your anxiety in those first 5 days. People do. Hey, have a look around, have a poke around. There's lots of stuff there, and enjoy. And if you didn't know, you can also get this podcast on Spotify now. Hey, until next time, have more fun than you can stand.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.